Norman Yeung is a writer, actor, and visual artist. His play Theory won the Voden Prize and was nominated for the Carol Bolt Award. Other plays and performance pieces include The Zoonotic Story, I Know I'm Supposed to Love You, Deirdre Dear, In This Moment, and Black Brood. Theory was recorded as a radio podcast for Play Me from CBC Podcasts. Norman was playwright in residence at Outside the March and has been a member of the Playwriter Creator Units at the Stratford Festival, Tarragon Theatre, Fujian Theatre Company, Tapestry Opera, and Canadian Stage. He holds an honors BFA in film from Ryerson University and a BFA in acting and theatre from the University of British Columbia. Norman was born in Guangzhou and divides his time between Los Angeles, Toronto, and his hometown of East Vancouver on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. And I am really delighted, Norman, to be spending some time with you this afternoon. This is great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jen. It's a mutual pleasure. So thank you for having me and engaging with the play.
Yeah. So I saw Theory when it was part of the Voden playwriting event back at Queen's. Gosh, it's got to be more than 10 years now.
I think it was 2016 would be the,
okay.
the actual, yeah, it feels like it though, doesn't it? It's getting up there though, you're right. It is like at least halfway to 10 years, yeah.
All right, so solid
like
5 years ago. So I do remember, but I
Absolutely.
remember the workshop in the Rotunda Theater, and I remember the play just taking my breath away. It's incredibly powerful.
Well, thank you, Jen, and thanks for being a part of the committee, or the whole gang at Queen's and the Voden committee to let Theory, move forward with development and and receive all the great support that it did from your company.
Well, I'm really delighted to see it in print. This is great. So maybe I'll begin with a little bit of a sort of a précis of the play and how it starts for people who are not familiar with Theory. So the play begins with Isabelle, who is a white woman, and she's a professor of film theory, and she's a pretty new professor, and she's one of the main characters, as well as her wife Lee, who is a Black novelist and a tenured professor, so someone slightly older. And so this couple is really at the center of the play. And then Isabelle decides that in her class, she's going to open an unmoderated discussion forum for her students. She wants them to think freely, and she thinks this is going to be a marvelous idea. And almost right away, the students are not keen on this idea, and they start to express some concerns. They're sort of interested in it, a little bit of trepidation, but also they have some worries, and they try to express those to Isabelle. And then Lee is also concerned about what Isabelle is doing, because she can see that this also might be not wise. And that's really the opening kind of situation for the play, bringing in this tension between what we might call freedom, I'm going to use quotation marks, freedom and safety, and what those mean to different characters in the play. And then another tension that I was sort of struck by as a kind of central thread of the play is Isabelle's the course content itself. So she's teaching a course in film theory, and she's teaching works like Birth of a Nation, and she's grappling with how to bring these works, which may have some historical or academic value, into a classroom, into a moment where that value is absolutely under question, and maybe even at odds with the current situation, with things that are not appropriate. We don't see the world that way, and we don't think these kinds of things are acceptable. And so, what do we do with these historical anomalies? And so, my first question for you, Norman, then is, Theory has been in the works in your mind for some time, and we certainly live in exciting times where things are changing in terms of our own understanding of the current context and where those hot button issues are. How do you see the play changing in its context from when you first started to conceptualize it through some of its early workshops and now to publication? How does it map onto this kind of changing cultural landscape?
Well, I wrote I start this with a sigh because it was quite an epic journey for me and to write this play. I wrote the first draft in 2009, and at that time the script was not as politically um, entrenched as it would evolve into. And also in 2009, not that long ago, just about 10 years ago, a little over, uh, politics in North America, or Canada and America, then I'll be specific, were not as divided, at least not as heated as they have been for some years now. And freedom of speech, even then in 2009, was still generally associated with liberal values. And then somewhere along the lines in the coming ensuing years, and until now and a few years ago, freedom of speech has become more aligned with conservative values. And so this big flip was it shook the foundation of what my play started as. I wanted to keep Isabelle, the protagonist, on the left side of the spectrum. But when the middle of a spectrum starts shifting, then that just leaves, a character that originated as considered progressive for wanting freedom of speech. All of a sudden, I did not want this character to be on a different side of things, simply because of what the whole premise of the play would be. And so with that challenge, the play evolved into exploring some of the divisions within liberalism. And now Isabelle's MO isn't so much freedom of speech as it is giving voice to the voiceless. And ultimately, Theory is a play about empathy and listening and learning, and especially to people who have opposing views, how we can learn from dialogue with each other.
Yeah, I want to pick up that idea about learning. For me, that really struck me. I mean, Isabelle kind of gets schooled. She really does. She really does learn, and I see her as being almost caught between her students, learning from the students, and then also from Lee, from her partner. So maybe I'll begin with the students. The play says Isabelle's a new professor. They say, "Oh, the reason we hired you is you're almost the same age as your students, and you're, very, very hip." We got that kind of sense of her at the beginning. And yet there feels like a generation gap between Isabelle and her students about their sophistication in online spaces. And the students have a very different perspective than she does. So I was wondering what your thinking is about this younger cohort, about these Gen Z students who are digital natives. Do we have things to learn from? Do we have things to learn from them?
Oh, absolutely we do. And honestly, that kind of makes me feel the younger generation, young adults, I'll say, people like Gen Z and, around college age now, they do have a great hope that when I was their age also, and I feel there's something about, being younger and hopeful that you can make change that I feel is very inspiring, and I wish I still had that rather than becoming jaded as the years drew on. And so there's and so Isabelle, who is older, she's about 10 years older than her students. She's a young professor, quite a hotshot professor, which is how she is on tenure track at a young age. But I know it's easy to maybe consider Isabelle as being naive. I could see that. My entree into her perspective was more being so steadfast in her values, and I could see this in anyone outside of the play. Just anyone could see it in me. Maybe is that if someone is so steadfast in their values, even if they do see the other side of things and they're aware of the bigger picture, but they're just so committed to their worldview, be it hope, change, revolution, or keeping things the same or regressing, whatever value it is that you believe in, you are so committed to it, there's that could appear as naive to other people.
Mm.
And so that's why if we had to equate youth with hope, and somehow naivete has a youthful energy to it or something, you know, we think about young and naive. Well, I don't know if that may, I hope that's not a discredit to a hopeful
Mm.
person. I just believe it to be, you are so committed to a value, and other people's might charge that as, well, you're just being naive. So I feel like Isabelle is just, she really wants to create some good change.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, things she does could appear as quite naive. Yes.
Yeah, and she does. I agree with you entirely. She does want some good change. She thinks she's gonna move her students. She's gonna transform them. She's gonna open them up. This is what a good teacher hopes to do all the time. And some students do feel that. Some students do say, "I never thought of it this way. I'm so excited. You gave me this opportunity. Isn't that amazing?" And some students say, "But now I'm worried. I'm scared. I don't feel safe now that you've pushed me and exposed me to this context, to this kind of unmoderated free for all." Some of them are quite hesitant.
Absolutely. And that's part of the learning that Isabelle goes through, especially from her older, more experienced colleagues like her department head, Owen, and especially her older partner, her spouse, Lee, who is a tenured professor and is older and more experienced and has played through the bureaucracy of a university system more, and the kind of compromise and that has to happen, and also the way to navigate um, administration and students and your own values as a teacher, and how to negotiate this very tricky a bubble of things to ultimately hopefully benefit the students. But you know, the professor is also a human being unto their own right, who has their own values to offer. So that is that Isabelle does become more aware. She is aware, but she doesn't necessarily act upon that awareness of, I can learn from these students too. When these students are telling me something about their comfort and how they would prefer to learn, or things that they would like to avoid, that should be taken into consideration more by Isabelle. Now, I'm as a writer, I personally, I don't feel as a writer I want to give a moral or instruct anyone or prescribe a way of conducting yourself to the character or to the audience. Um, but I would hope that someone like Isabelle, the character, would, and she does go through this, of course, that's her journey, is to be more empathetic and not just listen to other people, but also to learn from them and change yourself and act upon those changes and the learning you've done. So that's part of the empathy, which is the really strong underlying current in the whole play now.
And it's fascinating watching her, again, this is the title of the play, but it's fascinating watching her put a theory into practice and what happens when theory does become reality and things maybe don't go quite the way that she intends. I'm really interested also, and you mentioned this, is also in Isabelle's relationship to Lee. And again, that's just it's so pivotal, as Isabelle thinks of herself as progressive, and yet she does and says things that Lee finds hurtful, and Lee calls her on it and says, well, wait a second, is that really what you said? Is that really what you meant? And so being Isabelle kind of being held accountable for those missteps, again, by someone who loves her. So again, that kind of negotiation in a really committed, affectionate partnership is also really fascinating. The politics becomes manifest through their relationship, because they're not walking away from each other. They're committed, and yet Isabelle's being held accountable, which is again, I find just it's riveting to watch. It's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I do I do see something about learning from the people who are closest to you, and there is a certain kind of trust. Then I think that I guess I feel like, if we're judged by our own, meaning the ones closest to us, be it a partner, a spouse, your parents, friends, kids, whatever it is, the ones who are close to you, if they try to help you correct yourself, I think that takes on a different resonance than if complete strangers, or God forbid, like, complete strangers, anonymous on the internet from the other side of the
Right,
world or whatnot,
right.
that has a whole different way of penetrating a person's psyche and a desire to change or do good or whatnot. And so to come from her very partner definitely strikes Isabelle in a more profound way. So Lee is the soul of the play, and Lee is the vessel through which the learning happens. And especially for Isabelle, that Isabelle was rather unaware or unwilling to see how her actions were, or conduct or values were affecting her partner. Now, in their relationship, what happens in the play is the first time it ever happens. That's why they've never encountered it before, of racist attacks from strangers. And this is Isabelle's first year teaching on her tenure track. So this is all, the play is really first time experiences for this married couple. And that is why these cracks, which didn't need to be exposed before, all of a sudden, yeah, it's crisis mode now in their relationship. How the public crisis has penetrated their interior, intimate, domestic, private world.
Great. And maybe this is a question, maybe this can lead into asking about Lee, about this character. You say in your preface to the printed script that the character's undergone some changes. And you mentioned specifically the collaborative role of the actors who were involved in theory, and specifically you mentioned Audrey Dwyer. And I wonder if you can say more about what Audrey brought to the work. I mean, as an actor collaborator, what you learned from her and how she influenced your thinking.
I owe a debt of gratitude to Audrey for giving so much to the writing of the play and how the play would grow. She had been involved with theory for a number of workshops and readings, and the first professional production at Tarragon too. She originated the role of Lee. Audrey had been involved since, I think, maybe around 2015, maybe as end of 2014, but let's say 2015 for sure. And the script was going through some big changes then. Every draft was pretty much a big change, as I was trying to keep pace with the ever-changing, rapidly changing political, social zeitgeist of Canada and America. And so in one workshop setting in somewhere along the way in the 2000 teens, before 2018, of course, because that's our first production, professional production. But anyway, so around 2015, 2016, during a workshop, she said that I made a big change of making Lee's backstory more of a progressive activist in her background, Lee's background. And so with this new direction of the draft, Audrey, after a table read, Audrey said to me after, Norman, I'm not sure it's believable. It's pretty incongruent that if Lee came from a progressive activist background, that she would be in this relationship with Isabelle the way that Isabelle is behaving in this new draft. And so the point of all what I just said is Audrey has seen the evolution of it. And now that Lee is more of a progressive activist. So it seems pretty incongruent. And so, especially because now with Isabelle's microaggressions, that Lee would be complacent or not say anything, or it just seemed like an unbelievable relationship. And so Audrey so graciously went through the script, the draft, beat by beat with me and Esther Jun, the director, to point out moments in this new draft of how it was pretty much incorrect writing on my part, of how, this relationship is not believable here because Lee probably wouldn't behave in such a way to this microaggression from her partner. And this is especially important because Lee is a Black woman character. And there are certain things in that draft, many things that would not connect in that way to someone from Lee's perspective. And Audrey gave the most invaluable, detailed growth by helping me locate those moments and how to shape them into something that's a more responsible portrayal of Lee in this relationship. So Audrey really gave it the biggest push of substance and soul that carries through in Lee. When I say that Lee's the soul of the play now.
Great. I wanted to draw that out because you mentioned it in your introduction, so it's clearly something that was important to you. Just being mindful of the time, I want to ask this question. So the theme of the CATR conference this year is crisis and recovery. So what do these concepts mean to you in relation to theory? But also, what does crisis and recovery mean to you in your work as a playwright?
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. With this play in theory, I feel like, yes, as I said, learning is a big part of it. Empathy, you learn, be empathetic and listen and learn, but also take action from that learning. And so in this deeply divided time where we would hope we all do better, and we're learning a lot right now, it's valuable what we're going through. And we do want each other, we want ourselves to do better. And I hope we don't stop allowing each other to do better. I hope we don't stop giving each other a chance to learn. And if I don't want us to give up on each other. And if we want to help each other do better, then we can't just leave it at that and just like shove it out there and be like, here's the problem, deal with it. I think it would be personally more helpful if we do, call in or help each other learn and share and listen to each other. And also if we're giving out, we could also take in, keep an exchange going and give each other a chance to do better. And that is what happens in this play is Isabelle is given a chance to do better by multiple characters, and especially her partner Lee. And I believe Isabelle, if the story were to continue beyond the play, she would do better.
Okay, that's a really optimistic perspective. I think that's really, really, really valuable. Is turning to the lessons that we can get out of these moments of crisis. So maybe I will conclude there and say thank you so much, Norman, for your time. Like I say, I'm really glad we were able to connect, even virtually, even on Zoom. And I'm glad I got back to this play. I'm glad that I was invited to come back to this. I really, really enjoyed taking another look, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Well, likewise, Jen, thank you so much. And thank you for now quite a number of years of being supportive of the play, even from an early stage of it. So thank you, and to Queens and the Vote-In committee for everything that you've given the play and for this conversation.
I'm looking forward to seeing the play on its feet again, live and in person when we are permitted to do so.
Absolutely.
All right, good luck with it.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
In this scene from Theory, Isabelle has a meeting with her department head, Owen, and she has already blocked the mysterious student that is disrupting her class and her world, but the videos and messages are still getting to her. So this is Owen and Isabelle. And I'll start with Owen. We want you to feel safe. That's why sometimes we have to consider the student side a bit deeper. Appreciate that they're overburdened and under pressure. No matter what support system we provide, pillows, puppy rooms, better not get a kid pissed off. Got to kill all grudges ASAP, just in case. Isabelle. Thanks? So you banned this Richard 69 from your board. Now he's emailing me, texting me from a blocked number. He left out, who is? Ricky 13, Casey Kinder, Wilhelm Wagner, but not Richard 69. Yes, no, yes, but different names. Do we have evidence they're all him? I have to start with someone. Let's start with someone after the ban. How do I file a grievance? That could get the student expelled. Yes, it could. That's severe. That's the point. That could piss them off. Let's look at our options. Now, after the ban, do you find this material offensive? I'm a professor of critical thinking. Nothing is offensive to me. Then why'd you ban Richard 69 from your thing? He was offending other students. Since you banned him, has he been disturbing other students? I don't know. No one's complained since your ban worked. But this new problem, whoever it is, when's the last time they emailed you? Last night, the slasher pictures. With Isabelle Huppert, Isabella Gianni, Isabella Rossellini. Then I found out, so there's a relation to film. Some materials follow the syllabus, some vaguely. Gloria Steinem, Margaret Atwood, Bell Hooks, for feminist cinema. Any commentary we can think of? Something in class? If he wants to criticize a lecture, he could just say so. But we're not doing slasher movies. Spike Lee, some images are random. I think they're trying to figure out links between the images. They're speaking in montage. Oh my God. OMG indeed, Isabelle. My sons are 15. They've been carrying on conversations for months with friends where they said nothing but photos and videos, shirtless selfies in the bathroom, Michael Jordan crying. That's how they talk. You should know. You've sent a few GIFs here and there, right? He sent that video of me lecturing. He's recording me during class like surveillance, like a dictaphone. Huh? It's a recorder that's, I know what a dictaphone is. Perhaps they're dyslexic. He is not allowed to record me without consent. That's policy. Do you want me to turn this over to the conduct officer? Turn it over to the police? I would, if it got out of hand. When is it finally out of hand? When someone gets hurt? When this? It was left outside my home. Whose knife is it? I'm not sure. Would you like to talk to the police? Would they take this seriously? From you, yes. If you're feeling you can't cope, feeling incapable, I feel fine. Threatened, we could talk to the police. That's the thing. He hasn't explicitly threatened me. You're not intimidated by this? You seem it. Tell me how. I'm here. We're talking about it. My feelings aren't why I called you here. Let's talk about what this is rather than what I seem. Maybe it's some kids in your neighborhood. Have you dealt with a formal grievance before? Grievance over whom? Richard 69, who you only know is a bunch of megabytes. I could use your help with that. Who stopped posting after you made him persona non grata. Is he your nephew or something? Isabelle, I'd advise you to let Richard 69 back on your discussion board. I won't allow his education to suffer due to renegade social media. I won't allow him to continue posting lynchings, birth of a nation, Nazis, triumph of the will, hate images, violating students with, and you're not? I'm not sending porn, explicit fucking. What? Fucking. You showed your class baise moi. Your syllabus said clips. The film has no meaning in fragments. They have a right to not watch a film. They need to understand the whole context, starring porn actresses having real sex, a fair debate about feminist cinema. You keep pushing your liberal agenda so hard, someone will push back. My liberal agenda? Couldn't you have shown them Thelma and Louise? You're one hell of a prof. After our interview, I wanted to cancel the day, give you the position on the spot. Bang. I fought for you. Why? vision, how you saw yourself motivating your students. I knew they'd be inspired by you. You're just like them, but with a PhD. You're the same generation, but you're from an older school. It no longer fits here. Your belief that anything goes and everything's valid, they would give that up in order to feel safe. And that's valid. Not everything has equal value. Some things are just dangerous. So when you show that film and you made a chat board from where? And your paper stunt, and now you want someone expelled? A student complained about you.